One last piece of horse race news that I wanted to cover, and also another prediction I want to double down on real quick. So Nikki Haley surges in poll to within 4 points of Republican leader Trump in New Hampshire. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has polled within 4 percentage points of Trump in New Hampshire's 2024 presidential primary, a contest which could prove closer than expected for the ex-president. And an American Research Group Inc. poll released on Thursday, which had asked voters whom they preferred in the New Hampshire primary scheduled for January 23rd, Haley earned 29% support to Trump's 33%. So that's actually, in striking distance there. She has about a month to make up the ground to potentially take New Hampshire from Donald Trump. I have 2 questions for you, Zach. One, do you think there's any chance that this happens? And 2, do you think that we see Ron DeSantis drop out before New Hampshire in order to endorse Haley and try to solidify the anti-Trump vote behind her in a last-ditch effort to, get the momentum on her side necessary to actually wrangle the nomination out of Donald Trump's hand on a, national electoral stage?
I won't say it's impossible. I won't say it's an impossibility. I think I'm still in the camp where I find that unlikely because of what Ron DeSantis has tried to accomplish. I guess that's how all runs for office typically end, especially when you're talking about a robust, party primary for presidency. You do just endorse the other person. So that would make sense, right? That would be logical. And then potentially Nikki Haley would beat Trump in New Hampshire, which I definitely don't think is off the table. I think even without a Ron DeSantis endorsement, it's not off the table that Nikki Haley makes up 5 points and narrowly by a hair takes New Hampshire, right? And that would kind of start a wave through, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's going to be enough unless the entire Republican Party coalesces behind Nikki Haley and they decide that's their lady and they do Barack Obama calls Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar and all this stuff. And they're like, after South Carolina, Joe's our guy. All right, Joe's our guy. If they did that, I'm not saying it would work. That's their only shot at beating Donald Trump at this point. And I think it's a better shot. Honestly, Nikki Haley is taking off more than I thought she would. And general election polling still has Donald Trump up a meaningful amount. But the way that historically this worked is that if you started to win in early primaries, other people would be like, oh, wait, this is actually possible. Somebody else can win if you just vote for them, because in America, we get so force fed by the media, all this information. It's this is the person that's going to win. It's de facto nominee, Donald Trump, de facto nominee, Joe Biden. If you throw a wrench in that and you say, hey, man, actually you could have this guy, I think a lot of people are going to start to look at it. And again, I think that, Nikki Haley is a soulless ghoul. I think that she's a horrible person. I don't agree with her on almost any political issues. I think if you did our Venn diagram, it would be really small. And it's do you think oxygen should be free? It's yes. Okay, let's move back from there. You know what I mean? So not that this is a person that I have a lot of political agreements with, but I do think it would be compelling to the American electorate to be given an alternative option outside of MAGA Republican, outside of Joe Biden Democrat. I think that people would be compelled to that, even though I don't know if it'll be quite enough to get her across the finish line. I think it's going to be really hard to, beat Donald Trump in a Republican primary. It just is. It's definitely a potentiality. And honestly, boy, wouldn't that stir the pot if Ron DeSantis drops out and endorses Nikki Haley? Then we have a real race. Then we have what we call an old ball game on our hands, pal. It's a real dogfight.
Yeah, dude, I do feel like Ron DeSantis will likely drop out before New Hampshire, if not before Iowa. He might still stay in until Iowa, but I don't think he stays in until New Hampshire just to save himself the face of getting absolutely destroyed and coming in 3rd place in that state. And yeah, if DeSantis does drop out, then it does kind of sort of actually become a real race between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. I still think that Trump is the clear favorite, even in New Hampshire. Honestly, I still think Trump's going to probably win the state, but at least there's something. At least there actually is a semblance of a competition, and it's not just Trump at 60%, battling it out with all of these other losers at 10% or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's crazy that the primary is so close, right? It feels like we've been
January. I know it felt like it's an ethereal body off in the future, but it honestly, it does kind of suck because compare this to the energy of 2019 going into 2020, and it's just like, man, there's not as much discourse, there's not as much discussion. People are pretty much tuned out. I just feel like a little bit our democracy has been cheapened over the last couple of years. There hasn't actually been fertile debate. There hasn't been, a robust primary. I mean, that's the kind of shit that, regardless of your politics, I feel like we should all get down with, right? Like, I'm a lefty. I don't make any two bones about it, but I like the idea of having a debate before the American people make up their minds. And I think that, the way that we've corporatized and made it so both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are basically above the law. They're like, oh, we can cheat and lie and steal because we're not actually the government. We're just a private entity. It's like, that is so up and shady. Are you kidding me? So anyway.